Hello, welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new. My name is Kathy, and let's talk about some books. Alright, so as you can tell from the title, today I'm going to be doing a Q2 review for my A Classic a Month reading challenge. I'll be going over the 6 books that I read, or that I was supposed to read in the months of April, May, and June. I will preface this by saying that I did get into a little bit of a starting in, I think it was like late April, and then it just kind of got worse and worse. So I did end up putting off a lot of these books. So I did end up having to make up a lot of these books in later months, but I have read all of them now. So let's get started. So starting with April, the first book that I picked for April was Emma by Jane Austen. This was a good read, a really great character study. Really, it's like fun and lighthearted, you know, like no one has major problems or like it's not super serious. She's rich and she doesn't really have any like serious worries or stresses. So overall, it was really enjoyable. I do like books written with and about like imperfect or flawed protagonists, especially ones who are like self-aware or in this case like eventually become self-aware. And although Emma isn't as self-aware like at the start of the book, she does become gradually more self-aware, and it was interesting going on that journey along with her. And I did end up watching the movie after this, the new one with Anya Taylor-Joy, and I really liked it. Yeah, like nothing else to really say. I mean, Jane Austen is like, she's of a certain standard, and this is definitely like of that standard. Oh wait, I will add that, so this I got through relatively quickly. This was not part of the reading slump at all. If you're worried about that, I think this book is fine. Alright, moving on. So the next book that I picked for April is The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. Obviously, I was drawn to it by the title, and I picked it for April because of that too. Yeah, this was one of the books that I picked up when I was like already in the slump sort of, and so it made it that much harder to get into the book. So I ended up putting it aside. Like I started a little bit of the book and then I sort of put it aside for a bit. But once I did come back to it, it went through pretty quickly and it was pretty enjoyable. It's a light and hopeful read, I think. Her writing, so this is the first time that I've read Elizabeth von Arnim. I've never read her before. And her writing is very beautiful in a understated way, and unassuming way, I would say. Like it kind of, a lot of things almost catch you off guard is how I would describe it, but not in a like shocking way. It's just, you just kind of go, huh, oh, that's really pretty. Yeah, like not sure how else to really describe it, but it's not opulent, it's not in your face. It's just it's a very quiet and unassuming writing style that I really enjoyed. I will go a little bit into the plot. It's about these 4 women who read an ad in the paper for this Italian villa or castle. It's a castle. This medieval castle on the Italian Riviera. And it's for rent basically in the month of April. So they decide to go, and it's about their experiences before and during that time and the changes that they undergo. and things like that. So it's very escapist, I would say. So this would be a great book if you're traveling, especially to Italy, or if you're like just thinking about traveling and like wanting to get that experience secondhand. So I will say that I think I may have read this like very hopeful book in a time when I wasn't super receptive to like experiencing hope, I would say. But despite that, like I still got those ideas and I still got those vibes from this book. So I would say that this is pretty, it's generally a pretty hopeful book, and so it's very good and magical in that sense. One more thing to add is that the ending wasn't my favorite, or one aspect, I would say, of the ending in regards to one character wasn't how I would have wanted it to go. But overall, it was still fine. Like overall, the book is still really good. This is a light, mesmerizing, transportive read. Great for springtime, I would say, and even summer. Like reading this in the summer would be fine as well. Moving on to the books I read in May. The first book I picked was 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. Again, this was one that took me quite a ways to get through. I didn't end up finishing. I think I started this book in May, but I didn't end up finishing it until like a few months later. Yeah, I think like April and May were the sort of the major months of my reading slump. I have this love-hate relationship with García Márquez. I love his writing. I love magical realism. I love his words, his descriptions, and the scenes and images that he paints, the language that he uses. It's beautiful, but I just can't relate to or feel for any of his characters. Not just in this book, but like in Love in the Time of Cholera too. Like I just had trouble caring, about what happened to the characters. So that was my initial reaction after finishing the book. But I did spend some more time thinking about it since finishing the book. And I was thinking maybe this is, at least for this book, like maybe it was part of the strategy to emphasize that sense of solitude. Because in the book, none of the characters, like the Buendia family, they don't really communicate or talk to each other. They don't understand each other. They're all living, like, yes, they're living together as a family, but they're all sort of immersed and trapped in their own solitude. And I was thinking that maybe he wrote it on purpose in a way where the readers also don't really understand the characters, just to like emphasize that sense of solitude. So yeah, I guess in like if you're looking at it from that perspective, it makes sense, because I think you feel their solitude, I guess, in the sense, because like although you don't understand them, but the pervasive sense of solitude is there. I think it speaks to the type of solitude that he's trying to convey, in which it's not the physical solitude or loneliness that he's trying to portray. It's the like mental and emotional aspect, which you would get as a reader if you didn't fully understand the characters. Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely not going to stop reading García Márquez. I have been meaning to reread A Chronicle of a Death Foretold. That book I read for high school, and we did some more, it was like a more in-depth reading. And it's a short book, so I figured that could be something that I can like easily pick up. But after that, I'm not sure. I'll have to look into his other works and see what else I can pick up. But yeah, obviously Garcia Marquez, very, like, he's definitely a good writer. I don't know. Like I said, it's like a love-hate relationship. Alright, moving on. The next book that I picked for May is The Lady of the Camellias by Alexandre Dumas. So this was actually quite surprising. Like, I didn't, these are always I think it's always great when you can go into a book without having that much expectation. Not even in terms of like how much you expect from it, like how much you expect that you'll like it, but just any sort of expectations. But it's definitely hard to have that experience where you go into a book without any sort of expectations at all, because part of what makes you want to read a book and want to pick up a book is you have certain ideas and you have heard certain like opinions or reviews of the book that's made you want to read it. So it's definitely hard going in like not knowing anything. Yes, I think that just makes the experience of when that does happen that much more like rare and treasured. Yeah, it drew me in a way that I didn't expect. I guess with all like tragic love stories, it makes sense that it draws you in, and that's why like tragic romances, like that's why that theme works. I didn't think I would be so not caught up, but like I didn't expect to get into it as much as I did, I guess, because I'm not okay. Like I have never been in love, so I don't really know that feeling, or I can't really relate to the irrationality and the foregoing of all reason, basically, that accompanies being in love. So yeah, so I just didn't think that I would like care that much or like understand. But it is definitely really good, and I really liked the framing of the story. It's framed in the beginning as if it was told, so it's like told from the perspective of, which is, this is like a device that's often used, which is like it's told by a person who is somewhat removed from the story, and then they come to know and learn about the story, and then they're sharing it with the audience or the reader. Yeah, I think even though I can't relate to the fact of being so in love that you do all of these things, like the narrative was still really captivating. The story is well written and all that. And it discusses a lot about, like, I think there's a lot to dissect and analyze with the relationship. My personal opinion is that Armand didn't love Marguerite as much as she did him. She does, and like she points this out in the book, and part of it is due to social conventions at the time and the dogmas that were around, I guess, relationships. And of course, it's hard to quantify love, so it's hard to say. All right, had to charge my camera. Now I'm back. We were talking about The Lady of the Camellias. Like, you can just read it as a tragic love story, and that's totally fine. Like, just breeze through, really good. But you can also, it also touches on a lot of like social issues and conventions as well. A lot about women versus men's roles and positions in society and their values and the rules that govern their behavior. Yeah, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. And I got through this super quickly. It was like 2 days, I would say. So, really good. Like a really good like weekend read type of book. Moving on to the last 2 books for this video, the 2 books I read for June. This next one arguably took me this is probably the book that took me the longest, and is probably going to be the book that takes the longest, like, of this whole year, out of any of the other books that I'm going to continue reading this year, and that is Fasti by Ovid. This is Ovid's calendar of the Roman year, and it accounts for like various festivals and observances that are part of the Roman culture. He talks about like their origins and the mythology, and he discusses astronomy, like different constellations that passes through and some of the myths associated with those. Yeah, I actually, when I started the book, I didn't realize that it was going to end in June, because he apparently only completed like January to June, and then he was sent to exile, and he either didn't complete the book, or we just haven't ever found the rest of the poem. But yeah, so it just goes from January to June, and it was kind of fitting because I started this in June technically, but it was very hard. I've never read any Roman works. This is my first time, and I don't know if this was perhaps not the best place to start, or maybe it just, like, the first one is just going to be hard wherever you start. But I don't regret reading it. And two, like, even though I maybe only understood like 40% of the book, I think it was still really fascinating, and it opened the door to this vast pool of knowledge that not that I didn't know existed, like obviously it was there, but it was hazy, and now I have a more sort of concrete idea of like what exists there and how much there is, and I do want to learn more about Roman history. And for example, I did not know that ancient Rome, like I just thought ancient Rome was kind of this one entity, this one time period, but apparently it's broken up into the Roman kingdom, then there was the Roman Republic, and then the Roman Empire. So, and I believe Ovid's lifetime is he lived between the collapse of the Roman Republic and into the start of the Roman Empire. So that's where he was situated. He talks a lot about things that happened like in the founding of Rome, so that's like during the Roman Kingdom period. Yeah, lots of names that I do not know, lots of like terminology, names of places that I don't know. And so every like 2 lines I have to look something up. So included in this edition, there are notes that sort of clarify some of the meanings, and sometimes it'll just say like text was corrupted and they don't really know what this part means. So there's notes on that, and then there is a index of names, which is really helpful. It provides some just like a brief background on who that person was, and it lists the sections of the text that reference them. There is, I believe, there's like a glossary of some Latin terms that are untranslated. Yeah, definitely like a grind to get through, and I would say hard to understand in the concept of, I think for me, it's like I don't have an existing framework of knowledge to put these things that I've read about in place. And I think when you're learning something new, if you have a framework, if you have some background knowledge of the ideas and the concepts, and you learn something new that's related, you can sort of slot it into the framework that you already have, and with that, it becomes more useful, and it's like knowledge that you actually gained, as opposed to something that you just read, you have nowhere to place it, and then you kind of just forget. Like if you read a fact about something that you have no idea the context or the relevance of, you're just gonna forget. So for me, a lot of reading this was like that, where I didn't really have anywhere to place the knowledge, but definitely in reading this, there are a lot of things that have come up regularly enough that I've started to form a framework. So yeah, I did definitely learn a lot, just not everything that was in this book. Yeah, excited to read more Roman literature, I think, learn a little bit more about ancient Rome. It's interesting. So I think if you are interested, you can give it a try, but I would say, like, be prepared to not understand everything. If you don't have a background in classics, be prepared to not understand everything, be prepared to have to look things up, and be prepared for it to take a little bit longer. I would say that's the advice I would give to anybody going in. Yeah, I definitely think this is something that I would want to, like, after maybe I read some more Roman literature and things like that, I can probably come back and revisit. So that was the first classic that I read for June. I ended up finishing it in like early October. So yeah, there's that. Then the last book I'm going to talk about in this video is the bonus classic that I read for June, and that was A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. This was really great. Very short and light, really sweet, I think. And I think this book has made me a fan of E.M. Forster, and I'm excited to read more of him. Yeah, this is just a really, really great story, really great narration. I really liked, at first I couldn't quite put my finger on the writing style, and then I was starting to form this idea that, so the narrator it's unlike anything I've ever read, I think. We always hear that, like, the narrator is a separate character in every book, but it's not very often that you actually can feel it and sense it. Whereas in this one, you could really tell that the narrator is distinct. The narrator has a distinct perspective from any of the other characters. The narrator had their own perspective and opinions, and I really liked how you could sense, like, you could get that from reading it. And the narrator often, like, judges and, like, teases some of the characters in a really, like, witty way. And they almost make fun of some of the characters' actions or thoughts. So I thought that was really interesting. Really enjoyed Forster's writing style. I think this is a great book to read in a weekend. Again, like in the springtime, like I picked these books specifically for like spring and summer when it was sunny, and it was very fitting. So I do recommend picking this up in like the spring or summertime, or if in the wintertime, if you're looking for that escape and you're looking to reminisce. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say on this book. Really enjoyed it. Alright, so that's all of the books that I was supposed to read from April to June. Ended up finishing a little bit later, but still got them all read. Let me know if you read any of these books and what you thought of them. And if you haven't, whether you're interested to read some of them now. And that's everything for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.